Shout out to Beverly Pierce for sending me this article. Man, they are laying it on thick when it comes to this vaccine and black people. Like, they are really trying their hardest when it comes to us taking this chemical. Now, that's all I can refer to it as, is this chemical. I've done so many videos and talked about it in various live streams over the last couple of weeks, and it all just keeps going back to the same old thing. And that is as to why they want us to take this thing so badly. And this article right here is actually going to touch on something that I didn't even think of, but it actually sounds kind of ridiculous at the same time. Now, someone had said before, I can't remember who it was, that black people are never a first thought for anything in this establishment. But when it comes to this vaccine, we tend to be the ones they want to be first in line for, because historically, when it comes to testing and guinea pigs, we are the ones that they go to. Like, we are the disposables as far as they're concerned. But black people on a, I say, collective scale are waking up into reality and knows that this is some BS and something strange is definitely going on. But I'm going to go ahead and read this article and see what else that they're talking about. It says, what's not being said about why African Americans need to take the COVID-19 vaccine? Quote unquote, Dr. Anthony Fauci and other national health leaders have said that African Americans need to take the COVID-19 vaccine to protect their health. See how they keep saying that we need to take it? They don't tell this to any other community except ours. They've been saying this for the last month or two, that we need to take it. It goes back to those clinical trials. When they were just doing the trials, they kept saying how black people need to take the trial. They don't do that with any other group but us. Like, what is it about us that you want? You hate us, you hate our guts and have for years, but now you need us to be the guinea pig for your vaccine. The same vaccine that, might I add, and they still don't talk about, the CEO of Pfizer, that Albert, whatever his last name is, Bourla, I think that's his last name, said that, oh, me and my execs don't want to cut the line. Remember that? Notice, like I said before, and I knew that was going to happen, mainstream media ain't talking about it. And I knew they wasn't going to talk about it. But listen to this. What Fauci and others have not stated is that if African Americans don't take the vaccine, the nation as a whole will never get to herd immunity. Interesting choice of words that they use there. The concept of herd immunity, also referred to as community immunity, is fairly simple. When a significant proportion of the population, or the herd, becomes immune from the virus, the entire population will have some acceptable degree of protection. Immunity can occur through natural immunity from personal infection and recovery, or through vaccination. Once a population reaches herd immunity, the likelihood of person-to-person spread becomes low. The big lie is one of omission. Yes, it is true that African Americans will benefit from the vaccine, but the full truth is that the country needs African Americans and other population subgroups with lower reported COVID-19 vaccine acceptability rates to take the vaccine. Without increased vaccine acceptability, we stand little to no chance of community-wide protection. So basically what they're saying is the only way that everybody else is going to take the vaccine is if a collective group of probably well over 50, 60, maybe even 70% of the black population agrees to take it. So what you're saying is, and somebody correct me if I'm wrong, is you're blowing smoke up our ass, because that's basically what it is, that we can be the ones that will be the deciding factor if people will take this vaccine or not. That if we as a collective take it, everyone else is going to take it. This reminds me so much of what that butterball milk dud head Jerome Adams said. Well, LeBron James, he needs to step up and lead by example and take the vaccine, and talking about he spoke to people in Ohio. He ain't talked to nobody in Ohio about taking the vaccine, and then other black people would do it. The same thing that Fauci said, that, you know, we will go to entertainers, we will go to sports figures, we will go to, you know, other black people who have prominence and a huge following and a lot of money. And when that happens, then other black people will take it. Are y'all seeing the pattern here? Are you seeing the pattern? And let's just say that this happens. What makes you think that other people of other groups are going to take it? What they're subliminally telling you, black people, is that we keep the trends going. Remember, I've always said that black people, especially black people who are considered black Americans, or however you want to put it, are the trendsetters of the world. Whatever we do, we just put our stamp on it and then everybody else follows suit. So what they're saying is, if we start the trend of collectively taking this vaccine, everybody else will do it. Yeah, nice try. Good luck with that, though. Good luck. That's all I have to say. I am an epidemiologist and health equity scholar who has been conducting research in the African American community for 20 years. Much of my work focuses on strategies to increase community engagement and research. I see a significant opportunity to improve COVID vaccine acceptance in the African American community. About 70% of people in the U.S. need to take the vaccine for the population to reach herd immunity. Whites make up about 60% of the U.S. population, so if every white person got the vaccine, the U.S. would still fall short of herd immunity. A recent study suggested that 68% of white people would be willing to get the COVID-19 vaccine. If these estimates hold up, that would get us to 42%. African Americans make up more than 13% of the African American population. Now listen to that. That's the first time I've ever seen them put more than 13%. Because it was always 13%, just that. It was never more than. But now they're saying more than. So I'm curious, what's that number looking like now? Because we seem to have been stuck at 13% for, shoot, ever since I was a kid. And I'm 31 right now. But if up to 60% of African Americans refuse to take the vaccine, as a recent study suggests, it will be difficult to reach that 70% threshold likely needed to reach herd immunity. Latinos make up just over 18% of the population. A study suggests that 32% of Latinos could reject a COVID vaccine. Add the 40% to 50% rejection rates among other population subgroups, and herd immunity becomes mathematically impossible. Further exacerbating the problem is that mass vaccination alone won't achieve herd immunity, as the effect of COVID vaccines on preventing virus transmission remains unclear. And let me just add this. I don't know if they're going to mention it in the article, but they probably will. But if they don't, I'm going to say it right now. Isn't there like a bigger, more deadlier, more contagious version of this virus out there in the world right now, like in the UK or something like that? What good is the vaccine going to do if that one is worse than the ones we're dealing with right now? And I keep telling you, we're dealing with a different strain of this virus than we were back in March. Now we have another one that's on the horizon. So what is that vaccine really going to do? The one that they currently have right now. They're going to have to go back and they're going to have to create a even more potent one to deal with that one. I'm telling you, we're going to be dancing this dance to this song for quite some time. And I'm just speaking realistically. Ongoing preventive measures will likely still be needed to stop community spread. As the resistance to facts and science continues to grow, the need for credible information dissemination and trust building related to vaccines becomes more important. My research offers some possible explanations for lower vaccination rates among blacks. Historical wrongs like the Tuskegee syphilis experiments, which ended in 1972, have played a major role in contributing to black mistrust of the healthcare system. In another case, the immortal cells of Henrietta Lacks were shared without her consent and have been used in the medical research for more than 70 years. The most recent application includes COVID vaccine research, yet her family has received no financial benefit. So you hear all of those examples as to why black people are not jumping on the bandwagon and take this vaccine, but also you're throwing out a vaccine for something that just really kicked off this year in a major way, when you have other stuff out there that doesn't even have a vaccine or a cure attached to it and has been around for years, and you want us to leap to take this because now it's affecting the entire globe. I wonder if it was affecting just a certain population, would they be quick to jump at it and create a vaccine? The reason they're doing it is because this is affecting the world, the global economy, and they got to get everything back on track because they've never dealt with something like this before. But going back to the historical context, if they didn't do black people the way that they did back in the day, maybe black people would probably maybe be a little bit more trusting. Not saying that they would like completely be on board, but maybe there wouldn't be such resistance. They have no one else to blame but themselves when it comes to this. But I'm glad black people are actually really taking into account all of that right now. But see, what they're trying to do also is try to discount or discard, I should say, history and say, well, don't dwell on that. That happened back then. That's not going to happen today because we have all this technology, yet we're still hearing people having these side effects from this vaccine, such as having Bell's palsy, or getting Bell's palsy, or getting false positive HIV test results, or giving out the wrong dosage amounts. And how do we know that the vaccine that they're giving is actually a vaccine? Many say that, or suggesting that this might be a placebo. So who knows what's in it? And still, we don't know what's in the vaccine. I need to ask somebody who's taking this vaccine, do they tell you what's in it? Or did they just give it to you and say, oh, this is the vaccine. Here, we're going to put it in your arm, inject it, and put a little Band-Aid on it and send you on your way? Because I have a feeling they ain't telling the people what's in it. Nowadays, you got to ask. A study led by Dr. Giselle Corby-Smith at the University of North Carolina identified distrust of the medical community as a prominent barrier to the African-American participation in clinical research. Another Corby-Smith's peer-reviewed studies found that distrust in medical research is significantly higher among African Americans than whites. Of course, because they got the better health care. They didn't get treated with kid gloves. And this actually goes beyond even the historical context of that. Because look at, the guy, the one that they deemed the father of gynecology and what he did with black women. They were tested as guinea pigs for gynecology purposes. Because they felt that this was their response. Black people don't feel pain. But then they found all of a sudden enough technology once they decided to discover anesthesia, then they used that on white patients. So like I said, black people having their bodies used as guinea pigs is one major reason as to why we're very resistant to this. And we knew it was going to happen when they came out of nowhere early on and saying that black people were likely to get this the most. Like, they jumped out at that when we were only about less than a month into quarantine. I'm like, damn, that fast? Y'all already made that assumption that fast. But if you look at the videos that Lisa Cabrera has been doing on her channel lately, like breaking it down by race, and some other videos that I've done, something's not adding up. Something is clearly not adding up. And why do they keep pushing it in our direction? If they had it their way, they would probably say that COVID-19 came from us, if they had it their way. But they're not going to jump out and actually say that, because then that would be an extreme reach had they did that. These experiences of bias and discrimination fuel the problem of vaccine hesitancy and mistrust. Lower prioritization for hospital admissions and life-saving care for the virus-related illnesses among African Americans was reported in Massachusetts in April 2020. Massachusetts subsequently changed its guidelines, yet across the U.S. there's a lack of data and transparent reporting on this phenomenon. The current messaging of vaccine importance may seem tone deaf to those in the community who wonder. Sorry about that. Let me get started from that paragraph again. The current messaging of vaccine importance may seem tone deaf to those in the community who wonder why their health is so important now at the vaccine stage. Black health didn't appear to be a priority during the pandemic's first wave when race disparities and WOVID emerged. Boom. That was a very potent statement that this person made. Let me read that again. Black health didn't appear to be a priority during the pandemic's first wave when race disparities and WOVID emerged. Why now? Why is it such a concern now? That's why I keep going back to, we were never first for anything in this nation. We were always on the back burner, but we need to be first and up front for this. That's why I say question everything. It doesn't make you a conspiracy theorist. It just means that you are thinking for yourself. Perhaps even Operation Warp Speed has had the unintended consequence of decreasing vaccine acceptance in the African American community. Some ask why wasn't such speed applied to vaccine development for HIV, which still has no FDA-approved vaccine. As of 2018, AIDS-related illnesses has killed an estimated 35 million people globally. It continues to disproportionately affect people of color and other socially vulnerable populations. I can probably answer that for you. Well, actually, it just did, because it's affecting a lot of people who are not white. But because COVID-19 is kicking their ass, now they need us. I'm whispering because I don't want them to hear me. But let's be real here. That's what it is. If African Americans were honored and acknowledged in these COVID vaccine conversations and told we need you instead of you need us, perhaps more blacks would trust the vaccine. I encourage our nation's leaders to consider a radical shift in their approach. They must do more than pointing to the few black scientists involved in the COVID vaccine development or making a spectacle of prominent African Americans receiving the vaccine. Did you hear that, Fauci? Did you hear that, Jerome Adams? These acts alone will likely be insufficient to garner the trust needed to increase the vaccine acceptance. Instead, I believe our leaders should adopt the core values of equity and reconciliation. I'd argue that truth-telling will need to be at the forefront of this new narrative. That's going to be impossible for many of them to do because all they know how to do is lie. The truth is foreign to them. There are also multiple leverage points along the supply and distribution chains, as well as in vaccine administration, that could increase diversity, equity, and inclusion. I'd recommend giving minority and women-owned businesses fair mandated access to contracts to get the vaccine to communities. This includes procurement and purchasing contracts for freezers needed to store the vaccine. Minority healthcare workers should be equitably called back to work to support the vaccine administration. These issues not publicly discussed could be transformative for building trust and increasing vaccine acceptance. Without a radical shift in the conversation of true COVID equity, African Americans and many others who could benefit from the vaccine will instead get sick. Some will die. The rest will remain marginalized by a system and a society that hasn't equally valued, protected, or prioritized their lives. I believe it's time to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. That whole last 5 minutes that I just read, on point. That is what I and many other people who have been talking about this have been saying for so long. They have neglected us out of almost every sphere in America, especially when it comes to healthcare, for decades. Now they need us, and the approach that they do is almost very standoffish. Like, you're going to do this and we need you to do this. And listen, if this is another one of those, y'all need us to save the American people again, we're tired of doing that. Especially since we don't get anything in return except what we've been getting for the last, forever since we've been here. And that's not a damn thing except a bunch of grief, death, despair, and everything negative under the sun. Now, maybe if y'all would have came up off of them tangibles, them reparations, then you might, that could have been a bargaining chip. Maybe that should be their bargaining chip. We won't take your vaccine until we get something signed on the dotted line that we get in our reparations, that in writing, and we want the reparations in play before we put any type of needle and chemical into our body. If you do that, you may have something. Now, we can't say that all the people are going to do it, but it's a start. But let's be real here. They not about to do that. They not about to bargain with that. But that's fine, because then we'll continue to resist it. And you'll have to continue going back to square one. But knowing how they get down, they going to have some kind of trick up their sleeve. And they ready to pull out that ace in the hole. But y'all let me know what y'all think about this down in the comments. Like, share, subscribe. Make sure you have your bell clicked, notifications turned on to all. And I will talk to you in the next one.